When it comes to Abyss, there is one unit that we use to tank that stands above the rest, and that is Ares. Ares is undeniably the most used tank unit for Abyss and is widely considered to be the best. And there's really no alternatives unless you're using a Toreador Lord. But what if I was to tell you that there is an option that was debatably better, or at the very least more consistent and easier to use, that did almost the exact same thing? Well, here we get to enter MAGMUS. MAGMUS is one of the most terrible units in the game. No one uses MAGMUS. MAGMUS is terrible, right? There's no places to use MAGMUS. Right? Well, he has a couple advantages over Ares that make him even more viable a majority of the player base, because Ares has such a big issue, which is he is impossible to keep alive. Keeping Ares alive is very annoying. You need to not only build him well, you need to build him in a tank set, and you need to time ults around him, and even then, sometimes you will still die during your auto. MAGMUS does not have that issue. So the thing that MAGMUS has over Ares is not only is his base HP very similar, Ares has about 28,000, MAGMUS has about 27,000, MAGMUS's ult gives him double his HP. This is a monstrous boost in HP. And when you're struggling to live, obviously doubling your HP is going to make it very, very, very hard to die. And it's very, very, very hard for MAGMUS to die when using his ultimate. So when it comes to stuff like the Meteoric Deluge, it's very, 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 very uncommon that you will be able to die, even with morale, let alone building him in a good tank set. Now, there are a couple things that do hold MAGMUS back a little bit. If you are, by any chance, going for a high score, you've already hit 60k and you're trying to overperform, then Ares is going to be a little bit better. And if you can keep Ares alive, maybe you have a Nurse A3, Ares will still be better because he has defense reduction and vulnerability. But what if there was a unit that had both? And that's also what MAGMUS has. He has vulnerability on one of his passives, and when you get him to A1, he also has defense reduction in his ultimate, which is very good. Now, these are both slightly weaker than Ares, about 10% each, so it is a little bit of a damage loss. But the fact that he has both, and he's a lot more tanky, makes him far more consistent in autos, and makes him so much easier to use. Though a couple things, obviously the amount of debuffs are a little bit lower, that's a bad thing. He is not only that, he is also going to be ulting a little bit less with a 15-second ultimate versus Ares' 20%. And then beyond that point, we also have the issue of requiring that A1 to get similar things. But if you have the A1, MAGMUS is easier to use, and I want to show you guys how a run with him looks. So here we're on DCT's account, who is a guildmate of mine, shout out DCT. He is able to hit 60k, albeit no more than 61,000 using Ares. And he has issues with keeping him alive. But then we take MAGMUS, and we're able to go in and do really, really well. So I'm going to show you guys that run right now. Now, going into this, we are going to have to start with our units that are going to get the Invigoration. We're going to start with Kigiri and Wukong. We have two units that have Wings of Grace, so these are going to be the priorities right there. We're going to swap Yao Chen. Then we're going to place Sulkadins because he will be the third highest damage. And because we have Awakenings on our Setrum, it's a little bit less stressful to break the third physical, so we're able to have that flexibility. Then we're going to place MAGMUS right here. Once again, he's the tank. He's built with a key. He's built as tanky as possible while still maintaining that morale. So he is going to be there. Then we're just going to do the cookie cutter Abyss stuff until we get to the Meteoric Deluge, in which case I want to show you guys how this goes, because it is really, really surprising how little damage MAGMUS takes. So we're just going to keep this going. Now, because it is an A5, we're able to click Set Your Molt pretty early. I'm going to wait a little bit on MAGMUS just because I want his ult to last into the vulnerability phase if it can. Here we can click our Kigiri ult, and we're just going to do as much damage as possible. This is, at the end of the day, an attempt for getting 60k. So we do need to try to maximize the damage as much as possible. But we're just going to keep it going. Now, this is now where the Meteoric Deluge is going to come. As you can see, we're chilling with Aelin ult, but once again, Meteoric Deluge is the hardest thing to survive in this game. It is really, really stressful. But MAGMUS's ult is instant trigger. The second you click it, it's active. And once again, it boosts his HP by double. So we're going to wait right here. We're going to Kigiri, we're going to MAGMUS. He started with less HP. He didn't get healed before he got hit, which obviously is a big deal. And even then, he didn't die. And that's with no Pharisee ult. That's with no tank set, which is generally what you want to build on your Ares. And he's shrugging it off. And he's going to do the same for the second Meteoric Deluge. Once again, we went into this with him a little bit weaker than he should have been. And still, he had a decent amount of HP to spare. And he's going to eat up the next one effortlessly. So we're going to have to wait until we get there, obviously. But we're just going to try to maximize our damage in the meantime. Just seeing what we can do here. Let me just click the ultimates. Bam, beautiful. We can try to keep an eye on things. We can Wukong right there. It's a little hard to focus on Abyss, I will admit. Abyss is very difficult. So we're going to click our MAGMUS a little bit early. We're going to have to wait a little bit on Kigiri. We can trigger him now. We can trigger our Wukong and deal as much damage as possible. This is a lot of damage, obviously. Now, of course, it's partially to do with Awakenings, but the damage is still there at the end of the day, and we're just going to keep things going. So we're going to Aelin right here to try to survive. We can Wukong for some extra damage. And then we're going to get very, very close to the next Meteoric Deluge. And as long as we can keep MAGMUS alive, we're chilling. And of course, like I said, and I'm making the claim, it's not that hard to keep MAGMUS alive. So here, we're going to get hit with the Meteor. We're just going to trigger both MAGMUS and Kigiri's ult. As you can see, he's getting hit by a ton, and he shrugs it off. He's going to get hit again. Look at how much HP he has left. 30%. 30%. You know how crazy that is? For Ares, sometimes you need Wukong to give him his A1 ability to keep him alive. Sometimes you need tank gear. Sometimes you need Nursa A3. And then even then, with all of that, you know, triggering Pharisee ult, if you're using Pharisee at a specific time, you still run the risk of dying during the auto. Now, obviously not everyone's going to have this issue, but if you are having this issue, put an A1 MAGMUS. That's it. You can build him with morale, get a little bit of extra damage to compensate for his slightly weaker abilities, and you're going to be chilling. He is amazing. And for a unit that was heavily slept on, it's really, really nice to see him actually get some shine. Just like how Ares got. So obviously, once again, it is debatable that he's worse. Okay, he is actually worse when it comes to dealing damage. But it is close enough to where that extra survivability may just be what you need to get your 60k. Because you just can't with Ares. This is an issue that I've seen quite a bit. And once again, I know I've been saying it a lot, but this is MAGMUS's video. What if you could just live, right? So here we're going to barely survive. Everything's built very, very specifically, and it makes it very, very close there. But we're at about, you know, 50k. Of course, Diao Chen dies. I need to build her with more HP. But either way, now we made it to the shield. We can click his ult right there. We can trigger what we need. And although we failed because our Diao Chen died, the shield would have broken and we would have gotten that 60k. at the end of the day, MAGMUS proved his point that he is a tanky MF and potentially is easier to use than Ares. And that's what I wanted to show. So I do have to give credit where credit is due. I originally saw this from two people. I saw this from not only, let me try to find it, AirMax, the Outchan AirMax. It's a little bugged here, but as you can see, MAGMUS is being used with his exclusive artifact, which is a little odd, but he is doing a little bit of damage for him, which is kind of interesting. But this is where I saw it second, because the first person that I saw this on was actually Wumbo. Now, I don't know where Wumbo is. I don't even know if Wumbo's in the top 100 right now, because once again, MAGMUS is more for autos than he is for high scores. I saw Wumbo doing it as well. So credit where credit is due. This is where I saw it. As you can see, another Shire member right here is using it. That is right below. And this is with poison comp. So obviously there's a lot of flexibility here. It's just an Ares replacement. So whether or not you think he's better or worse, hopefully this helps. If you do have this as an option, I recommend maybe trying it out. I've seen people do triple healers to keep their Ares alive, when they literally could have just swapped to MAGMUS and won. Quickly, the gear is pretty simple. Sulkadin's full DPS pretty much. We don't have as much HP as I would usually recommend. We're just going straight up damage. Then we have Tear of Twilight, of course. A little bit of HP there. Cetrum has Infernal Roar. As you can see, we don't need full crit rate, so we can use pieces like this, because Cetrum gains crit rate when he's ulting. Oblivion Pendant is what we have. You could use Shadow Gaze if you would like, but that's what we're using. Then we have Lord Phineas. Lord Finn is pretty cool. We have the exclusive for the damage reduction, and obviously Soulbound right there. I would recommend building him with a little bit less attack, but it doesn't really matter. Aelin, we just want some HP, attack speed, and healing effect. Tia's Balm is best. Then we have Pharisee with Wings of Grace. HP, attack speed, attack, healing effect. And then we have Euphoric Orb right there. I did Cetrum already. Ingrid has Infernal Roar with attack and other DPS sets, or stats, I should say, as well as the Tear of Twilight. Then we have Wukong and Soulbound, and you can see that we have the exclusive. Kagiri is in Cataclysm. You want to do Cataclysm with the Watcher exclusive if you can. And then Demonic Relic is his exclusive and his best. The Outchan has Wings of Grace. We want a lot of HP on her because she loves to die. This is actually less HP than I had, but I ended up swapping it to more HP. So I could do this again and try to set an actual auto that works. And exclusive, of course. And then MAGMUS, the star of the show, is just HP bonus main morale. And then Astral Guardian on the left. He doesn't need attack speed because his vulnerabilities from being hit. And then Key as the artifact. So I had to make this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Just wanted to cover that. And I'll see you all in the next one. Destined signing out.